Hey, yo, welcome to the BradCast. Today we're going to tell you how to save money on car insurance. Maybe insurance is boring, but saving money's not. We're with Craig Fitzgerald, Witty wordsmith,
That's me.
who works for or with DCI Marketing. And we're going to talk to you folks who want to pinch some pennies when it comes to insurance. And Craig has some strategery for us.
I actually had to write a bunch of stuff about car insurance for Car Talk a number of years ago, and I think it's still out there. Actually, it's been updated, but it's pretty wild the difference in what insurance costs people. Like, people have no idea. Like, the first thing. Oh, go ahead.
You mean the difference between what it costs now and what it used to cost, or what it costs now between
the
people?
difference between one company and another? What state you live in, what town you live in. Like, there's a million different factors that.
So, what are some ways to save money on car insurance?
Well, so one of the big things that I don't think people understand is your credit rating has a pretty enormous impact on your car insurance rate. Right?
That sucks. That's so unfair.
It does, right? So if you have, like, I was looking at the difference, like State Farm average annual premiums, and this is from the Zebra, which they follow this stuff. They get data from a really good source. So I would look into the Zebra, by the way. It's kind of a, it's a tool to help you find lower car insurance rates, but the information that's out there is actually pretty good. So the State Farm average annual premium for somebody with a very poor credit rating, which is like 300 to 579, is $3,522 a year. For an exceptional credit rating, 800 to 850, it's $1,200. So that's $2,300 difference every year in just the credit rating alone.
How can they justify that? What does your credit rating have to do with your?
I guess it's your
likelihood that you're going to,
the
likelihood you're going to cost them money.
Right.
Why is that even illegal?
Well, there was some move to make it illegal, but that's off the table now. I mean, that's all.
That's just another reason to hate the world.
Yeah. I think, I guess I understand. I understand it to a degree, because it sort of gives you, like, are you trustworthy with money? Are you, whatever.
What does being trustworthy with money have to do with whether you're going to drive safely?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So like, that's a pretty big factor. I mean,
and what about this? A person who has no debt and just doesn't borrow money, and
their credit rating's not going to be great.
I know. Why should I be punished for being smart?
Right. So it is absolutely unfair. And I don't care, man. The insurance industry, it's the worst. It's the worst. It's the worst money you spend.
What were you going to say? Were you going to say it blows?
It's terrible. Like, and you're like, I'm not gonna, like, people will ask you, like, oh, what car should I buy? Like, look, man, buy a car that you like. Like, they're all pretty good. It really doesn't matter. Like, I've told you this before, right?
Yeah.
You can buy the crappiest car available today, which, like Mitsubishi Mirage kind of car. It will get you there, and it'll probably get you there for 100,000 miles, right? Great, whatever. Insurance and all of this kind of stuff that ends up costing you, like, all these companies are terrible. They're terrible. They exist solely to take money from you and to try to figure out new and inventive ways to not pay out when they have to pay a claim. I will make several exceptions to that, right? So Hagerty is my favorite, vintage car insurance company. That's only for, the cars that I have insured that are, vintage cars. They're great. Like, how many times has anybody in your life ever said, oh man, love my insurance company, no problem sending them a check every year or whatever?
Zero.
That's the way I feel with Hagerty. Because it costs me $250 a year to insure my 66 CJ5. And that's full coverage, like theft, fire, the whole 9 yards, right? A collision, the whole thing. It's super cheap and they're awesome. But the thing with a vintage car is you can't drive it a lot and it can't be your primary vehicle, right? So, it's not, there is no equal in terms of regular daily driver insurance.
By the way, sorry, go ahead.
So they're all, I would say if you have access to USAA, right, which means either you're a veteran yourself, you're active duty military, you're the spouse of a veteran, even if you're a child of a veteran who is a USAA customer, get an account because they're significantly cheaper than everybody else.
What about
that's the game with insurance is there is no good company. It's just buy it cheaper,
Before we go on, folks, Craig Fitzgerald, one of the perks of his gig, being an automotive writer, is that he gets to drive cool cars. Well, different car all the time, like a different car every week.
Right.
Craig has picked me up in such things as oh man, what the heck was that monster Jeep?
That was
Trackhawk.
Trackhawk.
Yeah, a Trackhawk that can beat any car off is crazy. Not any car, but any car you're going to see in a given day.
That thing was pretty wild. That was a car that like made your vision go all blurry when you stepped on the gas.
Yeah, and if I had unlimited money, I would certainly not buy a stupid Cybertruck. I would probably buy that Trackhawk because if gas didn't matter, it's pretty cool. I mean, I don't know. Even if I was super rich, I can feel in my veins the gas going right out through and that kind of is a not a great feeling, but I just like that. So you get cool cars all the time. What are you driving now?
So not, it's nothing like that, but it's also a car that's going to save you a lot in car.
It's going to save your life.
I'm driving a Honda Passport, 2025 Honda Passport, SUV, 3-row. It's something you see 800 of every single day. They're great. They drive really well. That their version of a CVT in it is a little weird, but it shifts kind of more like you would expect a car to shift. But, we're talking about car insurance. Like the Passport is the kind of car you buy when you don't want to spend a ton of money in car insurance because
right.
The difference between a Trackhawk and a Passport significantly different, because one costs $80,000 or $90,000 and the other one costs $45,000. Like there's a big difference there. The likelihood of you, plowing into a busload of nuns with a Passport is a lot less than a Trackhawk. People hurt themselves in those kind of vehicles. So, as a result, the insurance cost on those things is pretty reasonable. So that's another factor is like, what is it you're going to drive? So when you're going out to buy a car, if you're concerned about the cost of insurance at all, you gotta factor that in. Most people are looking at crossover SUVs and they're pretty reasonable insurance cost wise, like this one is. But
anything different on the most recent model of the Passport?
So the looks are a lot different. They look more like a kind of a tough SUV than they used to. They're they used to be kind of rounded off and nondescript, and they're a little more upright and solid looking, but basically the same platform underneath and pretty fuel efficient, and all of the active safety equipment that you'd expect in a vehicle like that, which I really appreciate. That's another thing is like when you're thinking about insurance, there's all of those adaptive or advanced driver safety technology features that also factor into your overall cost of car insurance. So if something has automatic emergency braking, for example, you would think that would have, a less of an insurance cost than something that didn't. Most cars have that now. most cars have that as a standard feature now. So
I guess another way to keep your insurance costs down is to not have a moving violation.
oh yeah,
And so that brings me to a question, and this is a question that nobody seems to know the answer to. And that is, here you are at a light, like at the end of my street. There are 3 lanes. 2 of them, well, one goes for the left, one to the center, one to the right. And the one to the right has its own light, and it has an arrow.
right.
Red arrow. So if you come up to that and you're first in line, you have to decide, is red arrow
No turn on red. Yeah, right.
Is it no turn on red, or is it go ahead and turn after stop, just like a red light? No one knows. And there's the people who have decided that it's okay are beeping behind you.
Right, right.
And no one knows. What?
So
you must know the answer to that.
I don't know the answer to that.
What do you do?
Actually, you know who I should ask? I should ask my son, who's getting his learner's permit next week, because he's probably gone through that with his driver's ed class. Like that's another thing. Like where, if you want to save money on your car insurance, don't have kids, because like when you put them on your insurance, it's insane. Like the cost of having a kid on your insurance policy is ridiculous.
So you can't answer that. Well, I
can't. I really don't know.
What do you do? I bet you go, don't you?
I do. Yeah. Yeah. I won't beep at anybody that doesn't, but I do tend to go through them, but it's a red arrow, which
my point is, if it was to be treated just like a red light, then why not just have a red light?
Right.
Are they trying to give me some other direction with the arrow?
Right.
Or maybe they're only saying this lane is for going that way.
All right. Before the next time that we talk, I'm going to know the answer to this.
You're going to have to ask some. Do the police even know? I don't even know.
I doubt it. So yeah, you're right. I mean, like moving violations, like you want to avoid those at all costs. And, I've been really fortunate for the last, it's been a long time since I got a ticket. I have not gotten a ticket since I moved back to Massachusetts. So that was 15 years ago. I was getting them left and right in Vermont because those guys had nothing better to do all day than write people up.
Right. Have you noticed that in some communities there's a drastic reduction in traffic enforcement?
Yes. Yeah.
Some of the police
forces, they don't have the time for it. They're like everybody else. Like the police departments they're having trouble recruiting people.
Right.
So as a result, like it's very rare that you see anybody getting pulled over on the highway. Even New Hampshire, like that, you'll still see people. You'll still see state troopers, right before the tolls.
Okay,
but that's kind of it. All
right. Tell me if you hate this idea. Towns can save money and have a traffic enforcement and the human element. This is a program I'm working on with my following plan. You do have cameras at intersection stop signs everywhere. You calibrate them as lenient or strictly as is make the people happy.
Right.
But you don't get issued a ticket automatically for violation. Any violation simply goes to the police department, where they have 1 or 2 people and their job is to review these things. And if you have a flagrant a-hole, like really, going 60 and a 20, okay, they get a ticket.
Right.
And if somebody completely blows through a red light where it's been red a long time and it's not a close call, you issue the ticket.
Right.
The accused will also get a copy of the video in the mail.
Yes.
As a tool, if they are in the right, to take it to court. And so you save money because you could even get rid of you could reduce your police force, still have really accurate enforcement. This would also apply to all motor vehicles, including motor scooters and motorbikes. Just so I could get it passed, I would exclude bicycles for now.
Yep.
And if you're a motor scooter in a bike lane, boom, ticket. And if you're, a big giant, an EV, electric bike, e-bike,
yeah,
blown through a stop sign, you get a ticket. You're a motor vehicle.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
mean, the
what do you
issue
think? Do you think the
part of
public
the
would
issue
hate
is
that or like it?
those things they're not registered, right?
Well, they
So,
need to be.
right.
Now,
Yeah,
I'm on a campaign in my town. They're motor vehicles. Some of
right,
them, like the GOAT, GOAT, I've researched it, go up to 50 miles an hour,
right,
weigh like 125 pounds,
right.
and they're in a bike lane, sometimes
Yep.
going the wrong way, blowing through lights. And
Yeah, they're
I
on the
went
rail trails and all kinds of stuff.
I
It's like,
went to the store. The way they're styling them now is like dirt bikes with a big long seat like a dirt bike, with suspensions like a dirt bike and big fat tires like a dirt bike.
yep,
And I talked to the guy and he said, "Oh yeah, they just put pedals on them so they can go in the bike lanes. Nobody's pedaling a 125-pound bicycle."
right.
So I don't know why nobody has the will to stop what is pretty clearly
Well,
it.
so this is going to change, and what's going to happen is that these people are going to have to be insured. It gets to a point where, like, I mean, that's why we had automotive insurance in the first place. Was the first person who ran somebody down at a crosswalk and didn't have any money to take care of their medical bills. Well, we got car insurance after that, and that's exactly what's going to happen with e-bikes. Like we're in this no man's land right now where they're all over the place. They're on rail trails, they're unregistered, they're uninsured, and there's 14-year-old kids running around on them. That's going to stop. I mean, it has to. You get to a critical mass with this stuff, and it's like, I think people have this idea like, oh, people are basically good and they're going to do the right thing. No way. The people are not basically good. They're basically looking for the cheapest way to get out of anything. And if that's to not be insured, then they're going to take that route.
Not only are people, and I agree with you, not only are people not basically good, they're getting worse at a really fast clip.
Yeah.
It's a toilet city.
So you were from New Hampshire. So when you were growing up, you didn't have to have insurance in New Hampshire. You didn't have to have automotive insurance.
Okay, we
It was one of those,
were
like,
always a big
live
insurance
free or
family.
die state things, which was like, okay, well, that's great, but what happens if one of these people plow into me? Like,
Yeah.
I'm fully responsible now.
Yeah.
So actually, this happened to my dad once years ago. He got rear-ended, light fender bender kind of thing. The cops came and they were like, "This guy that hit you doesn't have insurance. If you say the word, we'll take him to jail right now." So he was like, "Yeah, all right, I want to make sure he can pay for the damage that he caused to my vehicle."
Right.
So they took him up. They took him to jail. That's the flip side, right? Of
Wow.
personal responsibility.
Right.
It is, if especially with these e-bikes, like, okay, that's fine. You don't have to be insured, but if you hit somebody, it's gonna be like simple assault.
Oh man. Okay. Back to the main thread. Not that the main thread is all powerful, but how to save money on car insurance. There are other ways. I guess let's get into this. I not only concerned about my car on the highway, and I'm a real law abider, always have been. Yeah, and I want to protect myself against scofflaws. So I'm big on insurance and on the road, and against vandalism. So in both cases, when parked. So in both cases, I'm concerned about the best dash cam that can protect me if somebody, does something that might be construed as my fault when it's not. Also,
Right.
if you're in a parking lot and, some wherever, and somebody opens the door and cranks you, you're wondering, well, who was it? You have it on tape. What's the best brand? Is there a really top end brand of camera?
So I did a little bit of research. I mean, like all electronics, it's almost like you can't say the best of anything, because there's the best cheap one that's $45. There's the best really expensive one with tons of features. There's the easiest to use. There's all ranges of these things. But I'm always I always go with brand name stuff. You and I were talking about Amazon before we came on, and like I don't buy anything off Amazon, mostly because 90% of the time I've never heard of the companies that produce any of this stuff.
True.
But like Garmin actually, which makes my watch that I run with, like I tend to like their products a lot. And I looked at Car and Driver. They did a pretty good review where they actually tested these things. And Garmin's, both of the ones that were rated on Garmin on Car and Driver, they had a really moderately expensive one and then one that was like $100, and both of them performed really well. There was some complaints about how the app works and stuff, because one of them was the reason that it did so well because it was really small. And that's one of the issues that I do have with a lot of dash cams is they're huge. So they're actually obstructing your view. Whereas this thing is so small that it will tuck up behind the rear view mirror. You'd never see it. That one's a little expensive, doesn't have a screen on the back, so you have to use the app to make sure it's adjusted properly. But that performs just as well as some of the ones that are $500. None of them will allow you to read a license plate at more than about 25 feet. Like they get blurry real fast. So even when the car's not moving, if you're trying to read a license plate that's 50 feet away, you can't do it. Right. So I honestly think insurance wise that they're of limited value. Like there isn't an insurance company around that's going to say, oh, you have a dash cam in the car, we're going to cut your insurance rate by 10%. But what it will do is, and I think their argument for this, whether it's specious or not, is a dash cam's not necessarily a preventative, piece of technology. Like, it's not preventing you from getting in an accident. But on the other end, it can certainly prove that you weren't at fault.
Right.
Or help prove that you weren't at fault, which is the point of the thing, which is kind of the whole idea behind having one. So I wouldn't look to save a lot of money on your car insurance with one, but if something happens, it's sure nice to have.
Also, if it gets vandalized, you can see who did it. One technical issue is if it's tucked up behind the rear view mirror and you leave it there parked, it's not going to see if someone comes to your passenger door or something. It's too high, right? Can you take it down and put it on the dash?
There are like that one doesn't have, that one's got a camera that mounts to the back of the car so that, you get a forward and reverse in a backup view.
So it's got two cameras?
Ones with two cameras that are sort of, like two cameras in one that actually shows what's inside the car too. That it's got to be larger. Right. So that's kind of what they're using with, like, when you're in an Uber, it shows not only what they're driving towards, but what's inside the car too. But, like ones that, like, they're only going to show what's in front, when the car is static. Right. So it's not going to like, oh, now I've got a view of like who's coming up to the side door.
Well, I need that. There's got to be such a thing.
There, I don't know if there is.
Oh man,
I don't know if there is. So like, I think what you're probably looking for is more of like a, like a Simply Safe camera that mounts outside the car, so you can actually get a, 360 view.
You mean like a ring camera?
Yeah. I mean, I think that like there's almost two different things you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
You haven't seen any of those. Have you seen any of the cameras that? Like, no. I mean, there's nothing that you can mount outside the car, right?
I just thought that there might be some miracle of technology, smoke and mirrors, where it was a 360-degree view that could look out the windshield and the side windows and the back windows all the time.
I don't think so. I don't think there's anything that exists like that.
Oh,
and it's, I mean, the other consideration is that you need to, like, how are those images being stored, right? So if you're talking about something that's got a 360 view 24/7, like just the amount of data.
Well, it would only hold on to them for like 24 hours or something.
Right.
or 48 hours.
Yeah, I don't know of one that's like a
All right.
vandalism preventative
Okay.
camera.
All right. Any other ways to save on insurance? Oh, by the way, I have to tell folks I have an independent insurance agent. That's all the only person I talk to. I like that. They search to find me the best deal. They know my risk. They know how much insurance I
Yep,
want. And if there's something happens, I call him up. Hey, da 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 da, blah blah blah, and he takes care of it.
yep.
I love that, and it doesn't. I don't think it
He'll
really.
do your running to the registry too, which is like that kind of makes it invaluable to me to have an insurance agent that'll do that, so I don't have to stand in line, down at the Milford registry with all of the other dregs of humanity down there,
I'm
like
gonna actually
myself.
give him. I'm gonna actually give him a plug. It's probably. I think it might be out in your area. It's Russo Insurance. Chris Russo. Do you know him?
Do not.
Oh man, I've been with them a long time and
No, I have an agent too, and they're great.
super good.
Yeah,
And I can't. And I'm a person. I will never. Like I'm cheap, cheap, cheap. I leave big tips. I'm not. I shouldn't say cheap, but I don't like spending a lot of money. But I will spend the money on insurance.
yep,
I'm not the guy that only gets the insurance I need because really, how do I know what insurance I need? And those e insurance things seem like a bummer to me. It's like, oh, I'm in an accident. What do I do? Go online and go.
yeah. I mean, so they like. I've had a couple of instances where insurance was super helpful. I'll give you a great example. So my mom, who was 89 at the time, she stopped driving when she turned 90. She had a Volkswagen Beetle, and she, it was raining out one day. Some guy stopped in front of her. She stepped on the brake and didn't leave enough room and bumped into this guy. And like incredibly minor collision, right? No damage to the car, no damage to his car. Well, like 6 months later, all of a sudden she gets a summons to go to court because this guy's suing her for whatever it is, right? So I called her insurance company and I got somebody on the phone, and they were incredibly helpful. Like they went to court for her, and they basically they did I lose you?
No,
No, there you
testing 1, 2.
go.
Yeah.
They basically were her advocate during this thing, which was great. That's what I pay an insurance company for.
Good.
So
They're
they
actually
were
being their
super
own.
helpful. And but I will say, like, you kind of get what you pay for with a lot of right, right. So you kind of get what you pay for with some of this insurance stuff, like with Progressive and Geico and all of those. You need somebody to be your advocate when you're in an accident too. So for example, you crash into somebody, you need a bumper cover and a fender. Well, what kind of parts is the insurance company authorizing the body shop to use on that car? Your body shop needs to be your advocate, because the adjuster is going to look at it and go, yeah, it needs a bumper cover, needs a fender. And now the insurance company is going to say, look, we got to find the cheapest parts humanly possible to replace this with. Your body shop is going to come in. A good body shop is going to fight for you. That's what they do. That's where the body shops really come in handy.
One related question: at what level of accident do you call the police? Do you call the police in every level, or if there's personal injury, or you take a guess if there's significant damage? How can you guess at damage? What do you do? What's the rule? What should you do?
I mean, fender bender stuff. There's two things with a fender bender. Call the cops if you want to call the cops, but they don't need to be there. And they're, you can, all you got to do is trade information with whoever you hit.
At some
But
point, I mean, fender bender is a loose term. It's a graduated thing.
a bumper cover is going to cost you $3,500. So there's no monetary value that you can say like, oh, after, $2,000, you have to call the cops because everything is expensive. Paintwork.
Yeah.
And
So when do you actually have to call the cops?
If the car is drivable, I don't know why anybody would call the cops. It's
Okay.
right.
One reason to call the cops
but
is
I will
just to say
here's the thing. Here's the
that
thing
you
I'm going
called
to
the
tell
cops.
you. Please, if you're in a fender bender like that, get out of the road. Like,
All right.
I think people think that like they've seen too much television, like, oh, I got in a fender bender in the like in the travel lane of 495. The accident reconstruction team is coming and I can't move the car at all. Like, get off the road. Get off the road. You're more of a hazard, in traffic than you are, off the road a little bit. You'll figure it out. Like, you're not going to learn anything from leaving the car exactly where it was. So if it's drivable, just go to a safe location,
What if you want to cover your ass by calling the cops? They probably won't come. You could just say, yeah, I'm in a fender bender. I'm letting you know.
Yeah. And they're like my daughter got in an accident a couple of years ago, and I'm real minor. But the cops showed up. Nobody called them. I don't know. Somebody must have, but neither one of the two people involved in the accident called. But a cop showed up. Milford police, real nice, super helpful, and they also took information. So they took information from both parties. So then all I had to do was go down to the police station, and they gave me a printout with the people's information on it, which was great. That was helpful. But it's not necessary unless somebody gets hurt, or the car's not drivable.
I suppose you got to, while we're on it, take pictures of everything, and the information you exchange is take a picture of their license, take a picture of their insurance, take a picture of their registration. What else?
Yep. People get funny when you ask them for their license, but it's like you gotta give people that information.
Yeah, if they don't, then that's like a hit and run, kind of, right?
Right. You have to be able to do.
You tell them, look, if you did,
and they're going to be able to find that information, hopefully from your plate. But if your car's not registered, then the plate doesn't do anything. You need that license information.
I guess right away, take a picture of the plate in case they try to flee.
Yep.
Okay. Geez, I had a great question and I forgot. Anyway, any other ways to
make sure that you're so you're driving, a $2,000 car. I wouldn't recommend getting full coverage on that, right? So, every year you should be thinking about like, oh, just, this car is 12 years old. Probably at best it's worth $3,500. Well, I got to ask at least what the cost of fire and theft is and whether or not I really want to continue spending that on, car insurance, because it's not totally necessary.
Funny, there's hardly any fire. The cars just don't.
You know where fire always is though?
Tesla.
Vintage cars.
Oh, okay.
So I talked to the people at Haggerty, and they were like, yeah, we hardly ever pay out for collisions. It's always a fire in somebody's barn,
Oh, right.
Fire in their garage. And I will say that like you're insanely more likely to have a car fire with an internal combustion engine than you are with an EV.
Okay.
I mean, it's 100 times different.
Isn't most of the cost of insurance though liability, not collision?
Yeah. Well, collision's expensive, and it's expensive when you're younger. So under 25, collision, real expensive.
I don't know how. Yeah,
we're in this process with my son. I told you he's getting his permit. We're trying to find him a car, and it's like all of these things are coming in. Like, I don't want to spend any more money than I need to on a car for him, and I also want to be reasonable about the insurance cost he's going to have to put into this thing. So, we're kind of going through this at the moment.
I heard, and I think it's the case. If you have to have insurance, you have to have a certain amount of liability. Anyway, it's not a lot of money to jump up the liability a little bit if you want to cover your ass.
Right. And that goes up when you own a home. Right. So if you have an apartment somewhere, have a reasonable liability coverage. when you own a home, you need to reassess that stuff, because liability can cost you a lot of money.
Yeah, and you can really crank it up for pretty cheap.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, well, this is great. It's always anything. I hope I'm not forgetting anything. No, very good.
Be a better driver, right? Check your credit rating, because a lot of those things are wrong. You're allowed one of those a year from all 3 credit reporting agencies. Make sure you understand that. Understand what your liability is. Shop around. If you can get USAA because you're a veteran or a family member of a veteran, go that way. That's how you save money in insurance. That's your bullet points right there.
Okay. Well, I always appreciate talking to you. I'm always looking for excuses to do that, and hopefully we'll chat again soon, everyone. Yep. And do you have any plugs you want to plug? You got any gigs? You got any jobs or articles coming up?
If you want to follow me on LinkedIn, I'm posting there quite a bit. Just kind of find me there, and I'm always hooked up with you. So look for Bradley on LinkedIn and you can find me.
Yeah. And if you ever see that Craig wrote anything, he's a wicked good writer. It's very fun. He's a kind of a edgy kind of writer, and it's a witty writer. So thanks a lot, and we'll do this again soon.
All right, man.
All right. Let me end the stream, and then we'll chat and say goodbye. It's not ended.